there's really no one size fits all way to handle that because everyone's so different and processes grief so differently. So I think that I just had to do what felt like fully aligned with who I am and just trust that that would be okay. And so I did, and it worked out really well.
Hey, hey, my feel good friends. I am very excited to share this week's guest with you. Karima is one of those women who I have been following on Instagram, and I am just so amazed by the business she's created. Her story is super, super inspiring. And I was lucky enough to be a guest on Karima's podcast, Creative Minds Think Alike. I've heard a lot of great feedback on our episode over there. So definitely check it out after you listen in today. And I do want to say before we dive into the interview, I was expecting to bring Karima on here to chat about all things design, websites, social media, all those things. And Karima actually surprised me. She is going through a little bit of a hard time personally. And she was actually very, very open and vulnerable and sharing her story with us today. And we just had a really real conversation about going through hard times, learning lessons in life. All of those things. Plus, at the end, we do talk a little bit about strategy when it comes to social media and design for sure. But I do want to say that while I was expecting to talk about social media, design, all things business, I think that the conversation today with Karima is actually way more valuable, exciting, real, and just wonderful. Seriously, like it's a little bit tough. It's a little bit hard. We talk about hard things, but she handles everything with grace. And the knowledge that she's imparting to us is so, so great and applicable in all of our lives. I definitely know that. So I know that you will absolutely love this conversation with Karima. Let's go ahead and dive in. Hey, friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. You know what your brand vibe is on Instagram? I have a new fun quiz that's just for you, my friend. I, of all people, know how hard it is to figure out how the heck you're supposed to translate your brand to the gram. And with this quick 7-question quiz, we will help you hone in on your brand's personality, voice, and visuals so that you can show up consistently and create content that looks beautiful and feels on brand for you. This quiz is so awesome. It's been a long time coming, and I know that you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Plus, the results will help you show up in the best way for you. If you'd like to check out our new brand vibe quiz, just head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz. Pretty easy. Head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz to find out what your brand's vibe is on social media and start showing up there for your brand. Hi, Karima. Thank you so much for joining us, lady. I'm so excited to have you on the Feel Good Social podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm so, so excited.
Yes. Well, I did already introduce you a little bit in the intro, but I would love to hear from you. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you serve?
Yeah. So I do brand and web design. I do it full time. I've been doing it for about 3 years. I also recently have been working on creating a course for other designers. I work with other designers to help them just like level up their business as like a mentor and a coach. And so that is something really big that I've been working on lately too. I like to just work with other women-owned businesses, especially creative businesses, to just really help people kind of give their business the face it deserves. So I do that, and I live in a little downtown apartment with a very whiny Dalmatian. And yeah, that's kind of how I spend my days now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, your dog is adorable. Whenever I was interviewing on your podcast, all of the mailmen who were coming to the door was so funny. I deal with that all the time too. I have two dogs. And I can't wait to talk to you about course creation as well. I created my first course last year, and man, it is a big project to tackle. I think.
Yeah, it's a beast. I actually like even outsourced it, and even like outsourcing all of the like slide decks and all of the like, I mean, I created a lot of the content, but still like the copy and everything. I'm like, this is still a beast. And I feel like I've really, really delegated this. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would love to hear, I think, first a little bit about how did you get started in web design and creating your business and all the things? What's the Karima origin story?
yeah, so I had graduated college with a PR and journalism degree, and I started writing for a few national fitness magazines, which sounds sexier than it actually is. It was miserable. It was just a job that I dreaded Mondays on Fridays because it was
Mhm.
just exhausting, and it was like a 45-minute commute there and back, and it was for $30,000 a year. I could barely afford, my rent, and I just had to move to a city to do that job, and I was just miserable. And I would look at my day to day and just knew I wasn't happy. I was in a really unhealthy relationship at the time, and I just felt like nothing was really working out. And so the universe did as the universe does and just made me, take a new path even when I really didn't expect to. And I got fired from that job. And after that, I was very, very like lost for many months. I was waiting tables at a barbecue restaurant in Louisville, Kentucky. I'd like uprooted my entire life there for this job because I just felt lucky to have any sort of job after college. I was trying not to be picky. And then I was doing that for about 6 months. I couldn't even afford dog food one time. I remember like sitting on my floor crying because I was giving my dog, like I was cooking her a hamburger that I had frozen in the freezer because I couldn't even afford to get her dog food. And finally, I just was like, I have to do something. So I started designing resumes or birthday cards or really anything people asked me for, just sitting out of like a Starbucks. I'd lost my apartment and was living out of my car because I couldn't even pay my rent. It was like the lowest time in my life. And I just knew that I had to like take any steps forward, So I started doing that. And then from there, I just really did it like a day at a time. I would really take anything people would pay me. And then finally, I got another job as a director of marketing for a few healthcare companies, which also sounds sexier than it really was. But it was more fulfilling. Like I felt like very important and very valued, but I still just wasn't happy in the day to day. I would still sit there and try to think of different blogs I could start or different ways that I could make something else happen for me because I just knew that that wasn't it. That wasn't what was lighting me up. And I started designing their websites. And after doing that, I realized that people really needed web design, even in the healthcare industry. And if they were charging, $10,000 or whatever that was for a website I created, I wasn't seeing a penny of it. And I realized that, if people were willing to pay for that work, I could get clients elsewhere. So hired a business coach before I even had a business. Everyone thought I was crazy because it was more than my rent for my apartment a month, but I just knew I needed to try something. I thought I was going to do social media since I had a marketing background, but I just really started designing websites and that's what lit me up. And then I decided to move to Raleigh, North Carolina, just on a whim. I'd like left my ex. I'd done all of these different life changes all at once and just kind of started over. So that's where I really started to just, learn as I went and all of the pieces started to fall together.
Oh man, I so many great like things about that story. Like I think that a lot of times people exactly. I love that you kept saying like these jobs were so much sexier than they
Yeah.
really were. They sounded because that is one of those things that's like, oh, this bright, shiny job. And especially like coming right out of college, like a college student is like, yes, I will take whatever. But like it doesn't always work out. And that's okay. And
Yeah.
like going through the hard things like that for sure. Like, it sucks. It definitely sucks as you're going through the hard times. But also, I do believe that like you do come out on the other side of those times as like a stronger, changed person in a way.
Mhm.
And yeah, I totally related to so many of those things. I was I worked for the student newspaper in college at Purdue, and it was a daily newspaper. And I like was going to school for journalism. I worked my way up to opinions editor, and I completely like burnt myself out on the journalism like
Mhm.
field before I even graduated, which then I didn't even end up graduating. I just like decided, this isn't working for me, this college thing, gonna quit school, gonna go to Colorado. And I kind of moved to Colorado on a whim too. So
Yeah.
totally feel you there, lady.
Yeah. And that's how, honestly, I mean, you and I were talking a little bit before that. Like, I feel like my entire life is going through that again, just like where we think we have a plan and then it's like your plans really don't matter. Like you
Mm.
think you have everything laid out and you think you have this like path that you're going to take and that you can predict what your life's going to be like in the next few years. But regardless of like if we want to or not, I feel like I always have to ask myself, like, why is this happening for me? Instead of why is this
Mm.
happening to me? Because the universe will reroute us when we are not on the right path. And it can be very messy and very painful. But like you said, at the end, we can always look back and in hindsight and just see like, okay, it was all really leading us up into where we need to be, even if we were resisting it and we really had to go through this major life change or whatever that looks like to get there. So 100%.
Oh, girl, I know. Yeah, life is crazy, ain't it? And honestly, too, I do love your perspective. And I feel like, have you done any like purposeful work on your mindset in life or as an entrepreneur or anything like that? How did you get like these perspectives on how to deal with hard times and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
I think that a lot of it has just come through, well, one, just going through it, like
Mhm.
I've had mindset coaches and they were amazing and everything too, and definitely helped me just like reframe thoughts, which I think is such an important thing in the way that I've been able to have this outlook. But I just I've always held on to like the phrase, just like the only way out is through. And then
Mm.
when I do, see things after I feel like I have gone through them finally and I'm on the other side, I realize that it really was all working out for me because I've had like major, major life changes in the last few years. Like in the last 3 years, I've been engaged twice and both of those have not worked, but it's just, I've moved a lot. I've had just things that have happened that didn't make any sense at the time. But now that I look back on them, I'm like, thank God that happened, or I wouldn't have been able to be here, or I would have been stuck in that job I hated, or I would still be living in Kentucky waiting tables. So I think it's just really important to realize that like you have to trust the process. And that goes for anything in business, right? It goes for any creative process, it goes for any life journey or life path that we're on. Like nothing is ever going to be easy or perfect for anyone, especially as entrepreneurs. Like there's so many things that we have to tackle and learn along the way. But I think just knowing that like it really is part of your journey and your story and happening for you is just that thing that you have to hold on to at the end of the day. So it's kind of how I get through the days is just knowing that someday it's going to make so much sense.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. And like I think that that's such a great perspective. And I was kind of thinking about this the other day, how like a lot of times, especially I feel like when people are in their new, like at the very beginning of their journey in entrepreneurship or life, if you haven't gone through a lot of like struggles in your life itself, I don't think that there's like a shiny other side, really. I think that a lot of like the strengthening of your mindset and learning how to deal with things is learning how to like getting better at moving through those hard times because
Yeah.
there's always going to be another hard time coming up, right? And but I
Yeah.
do feel like yeah, it does take a little bit of experience moving through these, but like it maybe gets a little bit easier to manage the moving through, like the more you strengthen your mind and the more you practice and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it really comes down to like when you think about anything that we are thrown into in life that we don't know how to do. Like, this is a really random example, but what's kind of popping up in my head is like, say it's like survival skills, like say that you're
Mhm.
stuck in the middle of the ocean on a boat, like, and you figure it out, like, like you have to figure out like, what are the next steps that I have to take to get where I need to go. And you do, like, you just realize that there's so much in you that has been leading you up to these moments, like through your life experiences, through things you've been through before. And I feel like you just have to, I don't know, it's kind of empowering when you get to the places in life where you're like, oh, because I remember like 6 months ago, if you would have told me that this would, the situation I'm going through would have happened to me, I would have been like, there's no way I would survive that. Like there's no way, that is the worst case scenario. But now I'm going through it and I'm like, wow, like I'm so much more ready. Like I'm stronger and more ready for this than I ever thought I was. And it's really like an empowering feeling too. So I think just really like working on your own mindset too, of knowing that you have like your daily mantras, like mine are, that, you know, it's all happening for me, and that I have to trust the process, and that I'm always right, and that the universe, you know, has my back. Like I have to remind myself those things every day, and just getting comfort like wherever you can too. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I love this conversation. I feel like it's so relevant to everyone in the world right now too. It was such an interesting time this past year, like the entire world moving through a unified hardship together kind of thing,
yeah.
right? So interesting.
Yeah. And I think too, it's just in terms of even just like business as well, like it's really important to understand that at the end of the day, like if you're working with service providers or coaches or whatever like type of person that you hire or work with, like we're all humans going through and navigating our own things. And especially like you said, this past year, I think it's just so important to realize that we have to disconnect ourselves from work, and we're not going to be perfect at work all the time. And I actually heard something a few weeks ago that's been really comforting to me. And basically, I wish I remember the name of the podcast. It just happened to come on, but someone was talking about how in life we're always going to be dropping balls, right? Like, but some balls are plastic and they'll bounce back, and some are glass and they'll shatter. And so I try to think of that when I think of my priorities and like navigating the day to day. Because for example, like my mental health and my like taking care of myself like physically and mentally is a glass ball. Like once that breaks, that's broken, and there's no way to easily get that back, you know, like that is something that I have to prioritize. And then things like client work or deadlines, or you know, like emails, all of those things are obviously important and things that we're juggling. But if those fall and things are a few days late, or you know, we have to, you know, ask a client for forgiveness or whatever that looks like as we navigate through life, like those are things that will bounce back and be okay at the end. So I feel like it's just been really helpful to be able to try to prioritize things, because I mean, in the last couple of weeks, I've had to like move from a house into an apartment, redo my utilities. I was trying to launch a course, and that's been, you know, there have been so many moving parts. I have a podcast, I have a lot of clients. I was planning for a wedding in a few weeks that's not happening. So now I'm unplanning that. And so I have to like look at everything and just take it as one task at a time, and realize that some things are going to fall, but like it's part of being human. And I think it's just so important to remember that with whatever we are going through in business. If it's just overwhelm or having too much on our plate, like we can't do it all, you know, we can't. And we have to just make sure that we take care of ourselves first. So
Yeah, yeah, that was like a huge, huge lesson for me, especially like in the last year of launching my podcast. We celebrated a year in January of the podcast, and I was like so obsessed with making sure that I stayed consistent, right? Because Jenna Kutcher says that, Amy Porterfield says that, like I haven't missed a week in 4 years or whatever it is and stuff. And so I'm like, consistency is key. But I was like killing myself because it was only me in the beginning. I really couldn't like justify hiring a podcast editor right away because I wanted to make sure that I would see the ROI and all that stuff. And so yeah, there was definitely a few nights that I was staying up till 2 a.m, because I had to get the episode out at 6 a.m. But it took this whole like reframing of, hitting that burnout and realizing, no, Kins, like, what is your priority? You need to like, and it really actually helped me going through that burnout, really helps me to kind of like figure out what my priorities are, what my boundaries are with my work and my business and all those things. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up too. It's a hard lesson to learn.
it is. And it's one of those things too. It's so funny because when we really do hit burnout or have a major life change go on, it gives us that like gift of perspective where
Mhm.
we're like, what is actually important? And why do we do all of this? You know, because this was like, a wake up call like nothing I've ever experienced. And I just was like, what is this teaching me, And it made me realize that I was going through the motions daily without ever actually feeling joy. Like I was doing
Mm.
what I felt like I was supposed to be doing, and I was doing a really good job at it too, like I was in the way that you see me online, in the way that people were seeing my work, like it looked like I had it all, and in some ways I did, but I was miserable. Like I was
Yeah.
so unhappy in the day to day that like my depression was like, it was really rough. And so just being able to take a step back now because everything fell apart and I'm working on rebuilding it, I was like, there was so much that I needed from this. I needed obviously something drastic to happen to really kind of like reset that mindset of I have to bring more joy into the day, or it's going to be this constant cycle of burnout and not doing enough and feeling like unworthy and just all of these things that are not sustainable for the way I want to live my life.
Yeah. Oh, girl. Thank you so much for like being vulnerable, sharing this stuff. Like I really do think it's super, super important to talk about. And I really like appreciate you sharing your story for sure. I want to ask you this, but also I want to give you permission if you don't feel like really comfortable sharing this. Like feel free to say, no. But I would love to know how you do navigate that. Like I went through like one of those life shattering moments 5 years ago. And this was before I started my business. But
Mhm.
through the past year, this thing really kind of like was hard to deal with alongside like managing my business and all of those things. And so I'd love to know kind of like how you've navigated like showing up on social media for your business, but also on the back end in your personal life, dealing with hardships and like what to share and how to share it or how to show up, or like did you feel kind of weird, like having to show up as this shiny entrepreneur, but also going through hard things on the back end? And again, feel
No,
free.
no, I think that's even my own podcast and stuff. I've always made it like, I want to talk about this kind of stuff because I think it's so important, right? To be like, hey, like life is not easy. It really isn't. And so, yeah, like I think that, so basically as what I'm going through right now. So just as like a little background, because I know it's probably very confusing, but I was supposed to get married on April 10th, which is in like a couple of weeks. And my fiance was on his bachelor party, decided he didn't want to be with me and did it over a text message. And so it was a lot, obviously, because, well, one, I was on a work trip, but two, I have brought my entire audience in business along the journey of wedding planning with me. We've been together for 3 years. People have known us from the time we bought our house together. They were there and saw the back, the behind the scenes, like engagement photos when we got engaged last year. They knew like everything. Like when we were picking our wedding venue, I had just recorded a podcast with him, which I deleted, but I had that where we talked about what we were excited for on our wedding day. Like I'd walk through publicly, like sharing our honeymoon plans. So it was so related to my business, something that felt so deeply personal, like having a relationship that was about to be a marriage end suddenly became part of my business issues too, because I
Mhm.
couldn't just, well, one, and completely shut down and not say anything because I feel like at the end of the day, I wanted to tell clients, like, here's what I'm navigating right now. Like, please give me some grace. And so that's kind of honestly how I approach things. So the day that it happened, I'd just gotten back from a work trip, like a mastermind. So I'd already been off for a few days. Obviously, it was business related, but I just kept my out of office up. And I was like, I just have to obviously process this for a few days. And then once I kept processing, I was like, okay, I have deadlines, I have clients that need me, but I still knew that I was not ready to dive back into things yet. I had to move out of, we owned a house together, I had to move out of that within 48 hours. I had to obviously start contacting wedding vendors. We had a destination wedding with 150 people coming who all had lodging and airplane tickets. So I had to contact all of them and let them know, like, hey, this isn't happening. So I had to do just so many things that took priority over my business. And then probably around like 5 days in, I was like, okay, like I have to just at least check my email and let people know what's going on. And I realized that, like, just by being honest, like, hey guys, here's what I'm navigating right now, give me a couple extra weeks on things. Like I am not only trying to catch up on my business from being gone from a mastermind. But obviously, this giant thing in my personal life has happened. And honestly, I realized that like so many people are so just happy to hear the truth and like have you be vulnerable, that people were so understanding. There were a few clients that definitely had deadlines that had to be met. And so there were things we had to work out. But other than that, everyone was so full of grace and just like understanding. And I think it's just really important to know that at the end of the day, like we really do all have our own things we have to navigate. And so just being honest. And then about a week after everything happened, I decided that I'd been completely gone on social media, like couldn't even stomach the thought of logging into it. And so finally I decided to just check social media, and I made just a video, and I was like, hey guys, like I am just trying to like get settled in this apartment. I don't even have Wi-Fi connected yet. I had also had what was supposed to be my bachelorette party that weekend. Like there was just so much, but my sister and friends were like, you have to go. So there was so much, but I just was like, I'm going to just pop on and tell people. And I think people were able to kind of put the pieces together, because I was like, I moved out of my house very unexpectedly. I'm going through unplanning a lot of things for something I had coming up. And so I think just by trying to handle it in a way that wasn't necessarily like oversharing to people that I wasn't working with, but also letting people know like, hey, I'm not the type of person that's going to come on here and not show up or do anything unless I have to. And so, yeah, just really trying to like be a human. And I questioned everything, like the videos I put up. I made a post that I was like, hey guys, like I'm going through the hardest thing I've ever gone through. Can you please like, give me some grace? And I questioned those so much before posting them. And then I realized there's really not like a rule book for how you navigate grief, because I was grieving. I still am grieving. I'm grieving like the life I thought I had planned for me. I'm grieving the person that I loved. Like I'm grieving so many things. And I think that there's really no one size fits all way to handle that, because everyone's so different and processes grief so differently. So I think that I just had to do what felt like fully aligned with who I am and just trust that that would be okay. And so I did, and it worked out really well. But even if it didn't work out really well, I was just like, this is what I have to do and share to heal and to feel okay in this moment. This is what like my soul needs. And so I really had to just do like gut checks constantly.
Yeah. Oh, lady. Wow. Thank you so much for
Yeah, I
sharing
know.
that.
I'm like, that's a lot.
No, it's wonderful. I mean, like it's not wonderful, but it's like
Right.
wonderful to be able to talk about these things, because they are things that are really hard. And then especially this is like what irks me so much about Instagram a lot of times is like we feel this huge pressure to show up as like the shiniest parts of ourselves all the time. And so then when things like this happen, it's really, really difficult to navigate that. And like, what do I do? And it's exactly what you said. I'm so glad that you gave that permission, that like there's no right way, there's no one way to grieve. And it's so, so true. And I just want people to remember that, to like not be judgmental to other people, but also not be judgmental to yourself. If you're going through something difficult, it's like, there's no right way. And just like,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And you're going to grieve the way you're going to grieve. And however that is, it's okay.
Yeah. 100%. And starting a business too, it's kind of like at the end of the day, like we want our businesses to be real, like have real humans behind them. And you have to just kind of show that sometimes. And I would rather people know that I'm going through something and that's why I'm dropping the ball, instead of just, oh, she's just dropping the ball, So I was like, I would rather like at least be transparent in that way. So
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I think that, I've been like obsessing over Elizabeth Gilbert for the past year. I like just like kind of learned about her this year, sort of thing, and started reading Eat, Pray, Love and all the things. But yeah, like that kind of, she talks about like learning in public and just being okay with like being who you are and accepting yourself in like the best, in like however you show up, that's okay, and that's kind of what it reminds me of too. And also I think that when it comes to like showing up online for your business, like I get this question all the time, like, how much should I share? Like, what is oversharing? Right. But I also think that, and I don't know if you feel this way, like, it's so much easier to just show up and be like real with people, but you also don't have to give all the nitty gritty details. Like, it's okay to say, hey guys, I'm going through something really hard. Or, hey guys, like just had something shatter my life and, I'll show up when I can sort of thing. But just like allowing yourself to do that takes that pressure away. I think of like showing up however you think you should show up or something.
No, for sure. And that's the thing too. It's like I had posts that were scheduled. I had like content ready, but I was like, I'm not going to be someone who like hides behind plan post when my life is literally in shambles. Like it just felt so unaligned. I was like, I can't sit here and post this like pretty logo and be like, hey guys, like I'm booking right now when literally like my soul was crushed. Like I was like, I have to just like, I want to be quiet for a little bit. And I think it was just that permission too of being like, I don't have to be perfect. I don't like, it's okay. Like you said, if we're not consistent because we're going through things for a couple of weeks, like we have to take care of ourselves. And also, I feel like whenever we're posting on social media, like the energy and the intention behind us sharing things is so important. And just being able to like take a step back from that and being like, I need to get this energy back at a better place before I'm like sitting here trying to just keep on keeping on because that's not human. Like I'm not a robot, you know? And I think just like having that permission was so, so helpful too.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I love that you brought that up. I love that you brought up the energy part of it and how I do think that like people can feel energy through the screen. And what I usually teach when it comes to social media is trying to create from that place of joy, from that place of excitement, from that place of enthusiasm, because when you create content, that energy will come through. But also, I absolutely love that, like you just said, I had posts planned and I took them down because it wasn't fitting with my energy and my lifestyle right now. And it didn't feel within my integrity. It didn't feel authentic to me. All of those things, like that's okay. I actually love teaching people to create kind of evergreen content if possible, like when you're batch planning, because it makes it easier if something happens, if you need to change a post around or something like that, you can still use that post.
No, 100%.
Okay, I would love to chat just a little bit about social media strategies.
Yeah.
I feel like I always get to the 30-minute mark in interviews and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a social media marketing podcast.
Yeah.
But I'd love to just know kind of where have you seen the most success when it comes to building your audience on social media and really making like sales for your business and stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it all kind of goes back to what we've been talking about. And just, I mean, I know we hear it all the time, but like just showing up like as you are, like in a way that isn't just like cookie cutter or just trying to be what we think we should be or what we think we should say. But I think that even when I take a step back and look at the people that I follow, like I follow them because there's something different and there's something more there than I'm getting from every other account. And it's so easy to see people doing something and it working and us wanting to adopt that own kind of like strategy or something into our own content or the way we type. But I think that just literally like I write out, well, I'll box myself. I use Voxer and I'll send myself a message of a caption that I want and then I'll type it out. So it actually sounds like the way that I speak instead of feeling like forced and icky and weird. And so I think that just
Mhm.
like allowing ourselves to like cuss if you want to cuss or overshare if you want to overshare or post whatever you want to post without like thinking too much into it and like being so judgmental to yourselves, like that's where the real connection happens because those people will notice and it helps you stand out in the sea of so many cookie cutter like content posts. And it just allows you to actually make like an impact through your words instead of just posting to post, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yes, for sure. I love that. I know that is what that is one of the things that pops up for me. So often what you said about boxing yourself and then writing your caption in the way you would speak it kind of thing. Most of my clients, most of my students really struggle with they like are the most animated people in real life and like I love them so much and then they go to write their caption and it's like they're writing their college term paper. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, 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 like we need to be speaking directly to our ideal follower in like more of an informal way. Like people don't go to like maybe they go to LinkedIn for that, but they don't go to Instagram to read a college term paper?
Right.
Oh man. And also I do have to compliment you because your graphic quote that you sent me whenever I was on your podcast is actually like my top performing post of
Oh,
the
wow.
last
That's
like 3 months.
amazing. Nice. I love that. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. That's awesome.
So I would love to just hear some like maybe design. A lot of my audience is like really concerned about how do I take my brand to social media and all those things. So I'd love to hear any tips you have for people who are trying to create social media content that feels on brand for them.
Yeah. So I always tell people to just start off with like if you're creating in Canva, just have one file, right? Like don't try to make like things new every time. Just get out of analysis paralysis and create like 5 to 10 templates you can actually use. Even if they're not perfect, that's totally fine. Like use resources, like just find things that work for your business and use those. Because I mean, again, that helps with the consistency. It helps with creating things people will recognize. And I like to just do a brain dump and I will just grab my notebook and literally brain dump like 20 to 30 different ideas I have on a post. And it doesn't have to be like a fully written out post. It's literally just 1 to 2 words of things that I could share. And then from there, it's like I have a little pool of things that I can pick from when I need any ideas. But I try to just kind of like let myself have some mental white space when I'm thinking about content instead of just trying to like create content on demand or do it like scheduled in a day, even if it doesn't feel aligned. I try to really like let myself relax and chill out. And sometimes I'm usually like sitting outside and I have like tea or coffee. I'm just letting my brain think clearly for once without like being on, on scrolling through other people's posts or trying super hard to like make and create on demand. I'm just like, what feels aligned? And usually so many ideas will pop up and I can just jot them down in my notebook. And then I actually have things that I can share. And then there are always things that we can kind of like default to, like sharing testimonials or encouraging quotes and things like that. But I think so many people get obsessed with doing those things that, I mean, yes, like quotes and memes and things like that have a time and place, but it can't really be all that you're sharing because you need to obviously establish yourself as someone different and as some sort of authority or, some sort of voice in your industry. And I think that really just doing what feels aligned with you and what's actually coming up when you give yourself that time to actually think and hear your thoughts, those are the best things to actually create and act on. Because instead of trying to do things that feel forced and just posting for the sake of posting, you're posting intentionally. And again, like people can sense that energy behind those things and people will engage with those things, instead of just trying to force create on demand.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. Oh man. So many things. I geek out about social media strategy so much. I love it. And it's so funny because I forget if we talked about this already, but I'm not like a huge fan of a lot of things when it comes to social media, like the disconnection that it breeds, the FOMO it breeds, the comparison syndrome it breeds, all of those things. Do you have any tips for like how you set boundaries when it comes to your social media usage and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I honestly I've always lived by like, the quote like create more than you consume. I really don't scroll much on social media. Like I'm actually not the best at like engaging, but I have like a social media manager who kind of takes up that slack for me. I engage with stories, but I try to just stay in my own lane. I give myself permission to unfollow people even if I love them. Like there are people who I look up to in my industry that I adore and that I am so inspired by that I have unfollowed because I think negatively about myself and my business when I see their stuff. And that's not what it's for. And so I think just giving yourself permission to one, not spend your life on there. Like, obviously, you have to make it a disciplined practice at some way. Like, you have to make sure that you are actually posting, that you are showing up on stories. But I give myself permission to take days off. I usually don't check social media on the weekends. I have a separate personal account that I can actually like have fun with and be myself. That's not just like this perfectly curated grid of things. And then I just allow myself to enjoy it a little bit. Like I'll check it for a little bit sometimes, if I'm sitting outside or having my coffee, but I make sure that it's not like the end all be all for just my own personal mental health because I know that it's so easy, especially when we have like business Instagrams and follow so many like thought leaders. It's really easy to automatically get in this mindset of, okay, I need to be doing more or posting more or saying more or like whatever that looks like. And I really try to just not allow myself to go down that spiral of here's everything I should be doing, or oh my gosh, I'm falling behind, or why are they so much more than me? Like I let myself follow people who inspire me and that's it. So
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us, Karima. Can you please tell everyone where they can connect with you, find out more about you, listen to your podcast? Because I know they'll want to do that.
yeah. So my Instagram is at karima.creative and my website's karimacreative.com. My podcast is called Creative Minds Think Alike. And I am launching a course in the next couple of months called The Confident Creative. So all over the place with everything creatively. But yeah, thank you so, so much for having me. I really appreciate this. It was really good, even just for my soul to like say all of that out loud and everything too. So I really do appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, lady. How wonderful was Karima, you guys? Like the whole time we were talking, I was like in awe of how composed, eloquent she was, and how willing she was to be vulnerable and share her story, even through all the rough patches and the hard feelings that she is totally feeling right now. So I'm sending her all the love. I know you are too. And hey, if you did enjoy this episode, if you feel like everything Karima shared was super valuable, I would love for you to share this to your Instagram stories. Take a screenshot, slap it up on your Instagram stories, and then make sure you tag both of us. I'm at Feel Good Social. Karima is at Karima.creative. Tag us on your Instagram stories so that we can see, reshare, and spread the love right back to you, my friend. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.